a tyrant. We used to compare the strength of our democracy to communist dictators. That's what we're dealing with right now in Donald Trump. And these titans of industry are not speaking up.
Tyrants, communists, dare I say fascists? This is the same type of rhetoric that the left has spewed for over a decade now, that I believe led to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And what does our former Madam VP decide to do when she gets on MSNBC to promote her book, 107 Days? She decides she's going to spew the same rhetoric. Of course, spew the same rhetoric. MAGA equals Nazis. Conservatives equal fascists, or however these liberals, however they conflate the issue. We dodged a bullet, my friends. We dodged a bullet. But for everybody joining me now, I want to welcome you back to the Duke and Dutch Show, where we are going to be going through a little bit of Kamala Harris's press tour as she tries to sell her book 107 Days. We covered this previously. She's pretty much trying to throw everybody and anybody under the bus to save herself. And I think her political career is in the toilet, dumpster, you know, trash receptacle, however you want to call it. Her MSDNC interview was very interesting with Rachel Maddow, where she's going to explain why she thinks Pete Buttigieg would have been a better vice presidential pick. But because of identity politics, which the left champions, you know, they are the arbiters of whatever is fair and right. But she decided that she couldn't pick him because half of America was a little bit too bigoted.
I guess I'd ask you to just elaborate on that a little bit. It's hard to hear.
Yeah.
With you running as, you know, you're the first woman elected vice president. You're a black woman and a South Asian woman elected to that high office, very nearly elected president, to say that he couldn't be on the ticket effectively.
Nearly is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. I'm just going to say that. You lost the popular vote. You lost all the swing states. Nearly is doing quite a lot.
Because he was gay. It's hard to hear.
No. That's not what I said. That's
it's not.
He couldn't be on the ticket because he is gay. My point, as I write in the book, is that I was clear that in 107 days, in one of the most hotly contested elections for President of the United States, against someone like Donald Trump who knows no floor.
Yeah, Donald Trump's the extremist one. Of course.
To be a black woman running for President of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, you know, I've been
Why would it be a real risk? Also, it's really interesting that she's pushing this stuff on Rachel Maddow, who is, as far as I know, and as far as I've been told, gay woman, lesbian, I guess. And yet Rachel Maddow has no pushback at all for this sort of rhetoric to say that the American people are too bigoted to actually elect anybody who is a homosexual. Now, I've never done this before in my life, but I wanted to bring up this from Mayor Pete. This comes from the Fox News Network, but it's in Mayor Pete's own words. So,
running mate. We know tampon wasn't her first pick. She wanted Mayor Pete, but thought he was too gay. Pete read the book, and he's not happy with Kamala.
I was surprised when I read that.
Yep.
I just believe in giving Americans more credit than that. My experience in politics has been that the way that you earn trust with voters is based mostly on what they think you're going to do for their lives, not on categories.
Kamala had her.
And that's the crux of the entire situation, isn't it, folks? the Democrats who champion the inclusivity movement, and they want everybody brought together. It doesn't matter, your color, your creed, your sexuality. Everybody is welcome in the Democratic Party. But it seems like when you delve into the identity politics, then, everything can break loose. If you're going to say that you couldn't pick Pete Buttigieg because he was too gay, then I have a whole lot of questions about everything you actually believe in. I think everybody does. How can you champion, people who are gay? And yet, I couldn't pick this guy as my running mate because he's too gay. I mean, maybe half of America is too bigoted, but you lost anyway. And you picked one of the most flamboyant people you possibly could have in Tim Walz. I mean, if you want to get close to being gay without being gay, Tim Walz is your man. It really is. Or maybe it's an excuse. I don't know. Maybe it's this Pete Buttigieg would have outshined you. Same with Gavin Newsom, Josh Shapiro. Tim Walz was not really a threat. You got to pick a VP who is not as smart as you, and I think Tim Walz ticked those boxes at least. But let's continue.
An advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't
doesn't seem like it.
It wasn't about So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but
That
we had such a short period of time.
Wrong. You had 4 years to show the country that you could do anything. And in those 4 years, you have no notable accomplishments. Now, Kamala can always kick that back on her boss, Biden, and say, he didn't give me any jobs that were really good. Well, he gave you the border, but I guess you really couldn't enforce that because that would have went against the whole lefty lunatic type thing where, hey, we want open borders. So I guess you did what you were supposed to. It just didn't resonate with most Americans. And if you were given other tasks, I'm not sure what they were. VPs are supposed to compliment the president. Obviously, that's their job. One is to prop up the president. But Biden was supposed to be a transitional president. He said that. He was going to be a transitional president. And clearly something changed. But to come out here and be so bigoted. I've never seen such an overt homophobic statement in politics other than this. I mean, this is at least not from anybody who's higher up. I don't think Trump's ever said anything overtly homophobic. Kamala, the liberal, thinks differently.
And the stakes were so high. I think Pete is a phenomenal public servant. And I think America is and would be ready for that.
No, you obviously didn't, because if you did think that, and you believe he's a phenomenal person, he would have been the best pick for the job, his sexuality would not have mattered. But clearly it did matter. This is the tolerant left, everybody. This is we accept everybody on the left.
But when I had to make that decision with 2 weeks to go, and maybe I was being too cautious.
Yeah.
I'll let our friends, we should all talk about that. Maybe I was. But that's the decision I made. And I, as with everything else in the book, I'm being very candid about that.
Yeah.
With a great deal of sadness about also.
Are you going to say anything? Is she going to actually, can she ever just say something? Really? It doesn't have to be all this word salad type crap? Jeez.
The fact that it might have been a risk.
I apologize. I had to play this clip. And I know it was torture for everybody. But we got to get through it. We're going to keep going on. But I think really this is the end of Kamala's political career. I don't even know if she could win an election in California anymore. She doesn't seem like she's well liked. She's backstabbed everyone in her party, from the Bidens, Newsom, Buttigieg, Walz, Shapiro. Any prominent Democrat, she's backstabbed them.
Concern about
this clip we're going to get into, Kamala says Biden couldn't run again, but could definitely still run the country for another 4 years. Absolute lunacy.
him running for re-election was completely separate from my admiration and knowledge about his capacity to serve as president of the United States, which was...
How could those two things possibly be separate? He cannot possibly run again, but he's totally fine to serve for another 4 years. I'm sure the campaign trail is grueling. I'm sure it is. But you can't run again? Like, what are you talking about? What do you mean he could not possibly go on the campaign trail, but he was totally fine? Obviously, we know now he wasn't fine. He has stage 4 prostate cancer, which has been covered up for quite a long time by everybody in his staff, everybody who was in the know, and I think a lot by mainstream media and news, who never asked any real questions, never wanted to question the Biden initiative, because if they did, their access would be gone. And for me to have such a disconnect that Kamala Harris would not know about this, that's insane. You said you were in the room, lady. You said that on The View. I was in the room. I made most of those decisions with Biden. But it's all they do is lie.
Consistent and never wavered.
Well, when we sit here, as we sit here today, do you think he would have been up for running the country for 4 more years?
Here's the distinction that I make. And having had the experience myself, it is one thing to have...
No, I'm not going to say it.
It is another thing to go through an election for president of the United States. So you are an athlete. You may appreciate this kind of metaphor.
I would think that both tasks are equally grueling. Personally. I don't know. I've never gone through an election, and I've never been the president. But I would think if you are capable of one, you'd probably be capable of the other. Actually, I would say the election is probably the easier part to do. And being the president would be the harder job. But that's just my opinion.
Running for president of the United States is like being in a marathon at a sprinter's pace with people throwing tomatoes at you every step you take.
Okay.
It is not for the lighthearted. It takes an incredible amount of endurance and stamina. And can you imagine doing it while you are also carrying literally the weight of the world as being president of the United States? So the distinction I make is about...
a lot of other presidents have done that. Haven't they? You're going to say that nobody's ever been elected to a second term? Really? Donald Trump and Grover Cleveland have done it 3 times. FDR did it 4.
Capacity to be president and what that election would require in that campaign, especially running against Donald Trump.
So, listen, this looks terrible for Kamala. I think she's done. I don't even know if she could win, the governor of California at this point. Although maybe the way California is right now. Although, listen, I always crap on California. But I know there's a lot of California who are pretty sane people. And there's a lot of districts and a lot of counties that do vote red. So, it's not, the major cities seem to have the bulk work, obviously, as they always do. But let's see how Kamala is doing in the polls right now.
I would just say that if you want a messenger to go against Donald Trump, you can do far better as Democrats than Kamala Harris. What are we talking about here?
Maybe.
Well, let's take a look at her net favorable ratings nationwide. You know, back in October of 2024, she was at -5 points. Not exactly great, but pretty close to the 0 mark, right? Pretty close to even. But now, down under she goes. She's at -13 points. That's an 8-point drop. Since the general election among the overall electorate, she is not well liked at this particular point. The American people, they don't want this. They don't want her. And get this, she's 37 points underwater with independents. If you can't win independents, you can't win the election. And the bottom line is, with those in the center of the electorate, those who are the most up for grabs, she is way, way, way underwater. She is definitely swimming with the fishes.
So that
Yeah. So let me go back to here real quick. So she's lost 8 points within 10 months. And I don't know, I'm going to assume that this probably came out before her book did. I don't know that for a fact, but this book it might help her make a little bit of money. Maybe she can pay back that $20 million she still owes to the DNC. But it's not going to help her win a general election. I don't think it could help her run for governor. I think Kamala is kind of sunk. She turned on Newsom, Mayor Pete, Tim Walz, the Bidens. Who's going to run with her? Who's going to trust her? What sane population would think this person could be in charge of anything? You know, I'm thankful every day that President Trump won in 2024. I really am. I don't agree with everything he does, but we are a much stronger country and we're much better off than if Kamala got elected. And that's just facts. And I think most people feel the same way. So we'll probably cover this again. I'm more interested to see, she's got a whole segment on The View. If anybody follows this program, I love The View. Love The View. One of my favorite guilty pleasures is to watch the ladies on The View. It really is. But so we'll probably cover that at a later date. But, you know, until then, please leave a like, a share, a subscribe, and thank you for tuning in to the Duke and Dutch Show. And we will catch you in the next one.